So you want to be a personal trainer. Let's look at the pros and let's look at the cons. All right, team, you're here with me, Coach Chickenlegs. Let's look at the pros and cons of being a personal trainer. And particularly if you're a new personal trainer or you're looking to get into the industry, stuff I need you to consider before you deep dive into this amazing career path that'll either make you sink or you'll swim. Okay, let's start with the pros. Let's start fun, because I know we all want to hear the negatives. So let's get the good stuff out of the way before we deep dive in the cons. Pro, you can work whenever you want. So if you are deciding that you want to work early mornings or late nights, or you have a baby and you've got to work around the schedule of that child, it makes it really easy when you're kind of your own business, which PT is. You are functionally you are a sole trader. You do your own work whenever you choose to do it. So as far as work flexibility, very rewarding in that sense. So if I want to work 15 hours a day, or if I want to work 3 and make it a little side hustle, I can do that. So you get the flexibility of work in that aspect. It can be a full-time job or it can be a side hustle. So you get both of those benefits. So what I mean by that is that if I want to work full-time as a 30 or 40-hour week, I can do that. But if I just want to do some weekend work and I'm already got a career and I just want to make a bit of extra cash, I can do it as a side hustle too. That's one of the cool benefits of personal training. It can change its form throughout my life and throughout my career in it. I might even go from a side hustle into full-time PT. I might just want to dab my toe into the industry, and you can. You might find that it's not for you. You might find that it's the coolest thing you've ever done. Really, it'll just depend. And without trying, you won't really know. One of the cool things I really like about PT is that you are not limited in what you can learn. So once you've got that Cert 3, Cert 4, that is your permission to specialize in whatever area you want. Okay, so if you want to be a nutritional based PT, you can, and you can study whatever you want. If you want to be a CrossFit-based PT, or you want to be a rehab-based PT, or you want to be a power lifter, functional trainer, soccer coach, it doesn't matter. You are allowed to do whatever you want. You have a ticket to learn, and you have a ticket to give off this impression that you know what you are talking about, and to give off this aura of mastery on a topic. So when you might get someone like an exercise physiologist who knows a lot about specific stuff in the health and fitness industry, a PT might know similar stuff but specialize in their own way. Now, exercise physiologists can specialize as well, but they have set criteria they must learn at university for 4 years before they then move on to their own studies. Versus a PT can kind of specialize straight away and move away from some of the stuff they might not deem appropriate. So you can kind of see there's pros and cons to that. But one of the cool things about personal training is you can, if you wish to, deep dive into specific things, which is really cool. The job itself keeps you fit. You wouldn't ever buy food from a skinny chef is kind of one of the rules or one of the sayings, a turn of phrases. You also wouldn't trust a fat PT. So PTs often, it is a part of your job to be fit, and you might even jump in and do all your own training and do some of your own group classes. So you often find yourself getting paid to stay fit because you're training so often with your clients. So as far as a training work balance, you're obviously training quite often. So you might not even need to gym as much because your own clients keep you fit and healthy. So there's a massive benefit in that space. Okay. One thing that I really love is every now and again, you'll help someone and it'll just be another day for you, but the impact you make on their life will change them. For example, you might be a part of the journey of someone losing 50 kilos. And then from that, they then have the confidence to date again. And from there, they then get married. And from marriage, they have kids. And in their world, in their journey, you were a massive part of that. And for you, it was just another day. But for them, you were the catalyst to completely revolutionize what they happened in their life. They decided to zig instead of zag, and because you were there to guide them, they changed their life. So often you will make friends with some of your clients for years after the fact because of the impact you made on their lives. And it's a beautiful feeling, team. I've never found a job that's more rewarding in that aspect. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. You often have a huge turnover of clients, but every now and again in your career, you'll get someone who sticks, who really likes you, likes your training methods, and then changes their life. And it's hard to describe the feeling when you see someone do what they say they're going to do and change their whole trajectory of their life and for the better. It's magic. It's hard to beat, and it's hard to describe to you, but that's something I really, really love about personal training. It's cheap and it's quick. I value speed and effectiveness and cheapness. There's cons to this, but most of the degrees for PTs is about $2,000 to $5,000, and even cheaper in the hundreds of dollars with concession cards. And it takes between 3 and 6 months for most spaces, whether that be online or not. That's really quick in the academic space. Like, you're not going to see any physiotherapists or exercise physiologists getting a degree in 6 months. So understandably, there's less knowledge base there, but you can go straight into work and off you go, ready to crack into the career within 6 months. Now, I personally think it should be 4 years and be treated like an apprenticeship, but I can understand that the world doesn't work like that, and it's a lot better for money and turnover if we do it quickly. But it's good for you if you just want to make some quick cash and do a side hustle, because within 6 months you're practicing, right? Which is amazing. And speed is always good. We love a bit of speed. The course these days, I would take a stab and say is pretty easy. I've coached a couple of people through it. I've obviously done it myself. With modern technology, it is a bit of a joke of how simple that course is to do. So much of it's done online now that you can really get away with a bit of murder, which is not to say that you should cheat or you should be using digital aids, but so many people do. And the questions are pretty straightforward, which is nice for training within reason, but you've never been in a better time to seek academia online because you have so many aids. You have digital coaches, you have tutors, if you can use the education function for ChatGPT, you have a lot of access. So it's never been easier to get these degrees, and it's all done rurally, and it can be done online. You can do it in the middle of nowhere. These are amazing things. It's incredibly accessible. So I'm happy with that. If you are a hard worker and if you crack the code between your marketing, your selling, and your programming, you can make bank in this industry. I know coaches who make 300 grand and they are very, very happy. Did they make 300 grand overnight? Absolutely not. They spent 15 years in face-to-face PTs before they moved to an online format and killed it, right? Did very, very well. But you have the potential to make a lot of money. And why is that? It is because you're a sole trader. You can choose to work as much or as little as you want. Same as a plumber. If a plumber is owning his own business, he can do as many jobs as he chooses or employ people to do work for him and therefore make a lot of money. PT is no different. You can open up a small business, you can open up a gym, you can do online work, you can do remote work, you can be in face-to-face. There's 1,000 ways to make money in the industry. And because of that, if you've got the drive, you can make a lot of money. We'll talk about the con later, but if you're not a hard worker, you're going to make nothing. Who would have thought? Going online, really, really beneficial. Obviously, we're in that digital age. As far as work that can be translatable, since it's online, we can do it anywhere. We have access to the whole planet. So if you don't want to be an in-person coach, you can move to a digital coach. And so the online element and the ease of setting up a website and setting up all these things these days makes it so online PT is a little bit more feasible. You will make so many connections in this industry. It's bizarre. Whenever I need help with something, I need a plumber, or I need a carpenter, or I need a doctor, or I need someone, I usually know them within the community of the personal training. So it's really interesting how many people you accrue over the years who just know a bloke who knows a bloke. So as far as connection, you end up being very crucial into whatever community that you're based in, because you kind of touch base with everyone in the community in some aspect. So very rewarding and very useful in that you have a lot of personal connections. So these are, again, pros of the industry that we don't really talk about, but obviously knowing people is super beneficial because you can then find someone for something eventually. If I ever needed a plumber, I'd know who to ask. If I need a door fixed, if I need, some advice on nutrition, or I need some advice on real estate, I know who to talk to because I have those connections through PT. And obviously if I can give them some of my skills, they might give me some of theirs, which is a great trade. It's the old way we used to do it. It's amazing for the self-motivated. If you're someone who's really goey, struggles to sit still, really just wants to get after it and just always be on the go and likes multiple moving pieces, PT is great. I often hear that PT is a combination of ADD and caffeine. Might not be true, but people who seem to struggle with the bookwork excel really well in the PT space because it's so hands-on. So if you've got personable skills, you can talk to people, that's most of the work, because you can learn the systems and learn the maths that is personal training. But when it comes to the ability to talk to people and that high energy, let's go, I don't want to sit still, I don't want to be in an office, I want to move around, I want to go, it's hard to beat PT. And in the sense that it is your own business and you're kind of a handyman, you're a person of lots of different disciplines smashed into one. If you're finding disinterest in one of the aspects of personal training, you can just go to another. So if you don't like online training, you can just go to in person. If you don't like group training, you can just do PT. Or if you don't like PT, you can do group, or you can do rehab, or you can do yoga, or you can do coaching, or you can coach coaches. It doesn't matter. It's a constantly evolving and moving water of tide, and you just can ride the wave. If you're a high functioning and a real big go-getter, you can excel quite well in the business. Obviously not suited for everyone. Not everyone likes that really fast-paced, quick changing industry that has multiple things happening at once. But for some of us who might be a little bit more energetic than others, it's really fun. Also, it's really promotive of people who might not be as book smart. So for those who weren't able to get into physiotherapy or exercise physiology, this might be the path you go, because you can do just as well without having to be necessarily as book smart, and you become more practically smart, which is always a good thing. The ticket itself. So we talked about a little bit exercise physiologists and physios. If you found that you weren't intelligent enough, or you didn't get a high enough ATAR, or whatever your state or country's standard of university or college is, and you didn't have enough marks to get in, that's okay, because a Cert 3, Cert 4 is really obtainable for personal training. The practical skills you learn as you move into exercise physiology, OT and whatever are really, really applicable. And it means you get another gateway into university if that's the direction you want to go. A lot of the other exercise physiologists that I work with, a lot of them came from the PT background, and it is notable which ones are PTs when they're talking to clients. Okay, there's a lot of book smart people and there's a lot of practically smart people. And when you see them work with clients, and particularly yourself, if you want to go into higher education, but you want to kind of experience the world a little bit first, doing your PT is really valuable, because you'll learn the skills that aren't really taught in that higher education, which is that personability. If you decide to travel, you can take your PT with you anywhere. You can save up as you're doing your education, and then you can travel all over the world as a PT. It's a very movable job. So these are good things. We did all the good things. Go. We're all pro PT. However, we're not all pro PT. It can be really shit. It can be really hard. It can be the worst. And it is absolutely not for everyone. And absolutely not everyone can make it work. For example, like 80% of people quit because they try to jump straight into the water without the prep, and they drown. And that happens. So let's look at some cons. For example, it's a massively inconsistent wage. Being that some weeks I've made $5,000 and some weeks I've made $5, okay? Because clients will drop off, they will come in, you'll get a huge flush during the beginning of the year because of the weight loss, new year, new me stuff. And then in the winters, people usually drop off because it's cold and horrible, massively inconsistent. You cannot guarantee clients if you go online. You cannot guarantee clients if you go into a gym. Because of this, a lot of people decide to go the university route into those higher education roles so they can get a wage job. So some of us who stick into the PT space, they either succeed massively, as we discussed, or you can just fail. Sometimes you're in a space that's just not needing of a PT, so you don't make enough money to kind of allow yourself to grow, learn the skills, and therefore you just fail because you can't afford the cost of living. On top of that, gyms are assholes 90% of the time. The gyms who aren't assholes, I love you, you're the best. Those who are doing rent models at more than $100 a week are dicks. And because when you're learning skills for PTs, the rent model is a murder. It absolutely kills you unless you're a high performing PT, which takes a while to get to, right? So if I'm charging you $400 or $300 or $200 a week just to use my space, and you don't have any clients and you don't have any guidance, you don't have any skill set, it might not always be the best thing for you long term, because you've got to factor in, you're also doing your own tax, you're also doing your own super, you're doing your own, you don't get paid if you're sick. There's a lot of cons financially at the start, and that's why so many people drown, and it's probably why you see so many absence of PTs and big gyms. There's always an outcry for more PTs because such a huge turnover, because the industry doesn't change the fact that it does rent model. It just is a single swim model, and not everyone swims. Some PTs crush it and the rent model works really well for them. However, the majority of people, that is just not the case, okay? Percent models, depending on the percent or however they work it out, is usually a bit better, but yeah, good luck. Rent model is really challenging, and you'll absolutely need to find a mentor in whatever space you're in to make that worth it. Geez, it's competitive. So it's very competitive in that everyone around you is, if you're in a high box gym that's charging you $300 a week and there's 1,000 clients, but there's 10 PTs, people will scalp you to get clients. Is that the best kind of culture? No, absolutely not. If you are in a gym that has no PTs, and that might be really, really good for you, the problem is you got to wonder, why is there no PTs? You might be given a bunch of clients that make you hate the industry because you don't get to choose because you're the only PT. But more often than not, in those big box gyms where there is a surplus of personal trainers, it's incredibly competitive, where people are trying to scalp each other. People are changing their costs to try to attract more clients. It can get really, really messy. Personal training is usually run by a lot of younger demographic, and there's a little bit of etiquette that is not yet learnt in that space. So do keep in mind that some people can be really nice to your face and incredibly cutthroat behind scenes, but that is what it is. Huge client turnover, meaning that your clients will come and go like no man's business. You might see people for a week and then they're gone. You might see them for a month and they're gone, a year they're gone. It doesn't really matter what happens. Eventually your client's going to move on. So you're forever in this state of seeking new clients. You're forever in this marketing setting of meeting new clients. You're functionally training someone to no longer need your service. So you're trying to get someone from knowing nothing to their goal to being completely self-sufficient, which means they eventually don't need you. So every client you have, no matter how much they like you and want to spend time with you, they're eventually no longer going to need your service and will either go to a group class or move on. And that's okay. That is the industry. But be aware that you are more often than not funneling in new clients, and sometimes you can distract you from making good quality service because you're so focused on getting new people in. So your marketings ends up becoming more important than the program. And since your program's shit, you don't get to keep, it's another reason people leave, because you're too focused on people coming in. A good example is Anytime Fitness or the guys with those lock-in 12-month contracts. It's more valuable for them to get new clients in than it is to make the service that is being provided to you good. So be mindful that some gyms that when you go to work for them care a lot more about getting new people in and retention than they do care about keeping the clients who are there happy. That's just an insight for you to consider. PT isn't really well understood. People don't really understand what a personal trainer is, the general public. They kind of think you're a physio. They kind of think you're a nutritionist, and the reality is both of those jobs are massively out of your scope of practice. They think you're a therapist a lot of the time, also out of your scope of practice. And yeah, it's challenging when you're a handyman, when you kind of got to know a little bit about a lot about staying in your lane, and a lot of PTs can run into trouble by stepping over that line of professional within a bubble, where they try to do the stuff that a physio would do, or stuff that a physiologist would do, or the stuff that a psychologist would do, and they get themselves into trouble. So not being well understood both by the clients and by yourself, knowing where your wall is of work is challenging for some PTs, and I need you to keep that in mind. You are not respected in the health space. Within that health space of exercise physiologists and OTs and physios, PTs are just a joke because of the nature of the length of the cert, unfortunately. So you've got to be aware that a lot of physiotherapists don't like working with PTs. They'd rather work with exercise physiologists because you're just some guy with an internet degree that took 3 to 6 months. So don't be surprised that health practitioners look down upon you, because to be fair, we haven't given them a reason not to. And particularly with so many PTs hurting clients, a lot of exercise physiologists and physiotherapists businesses are built off the injured people who come from personal trainers. So yeah, don't expect to be well liked or well received from the health industry that is above you. But that's okay. That is what it is. There's not a lot of support. So finding mentors is one of the first things I recommend new PTs and people who are interested in the industry do. And there's not a lot of mentors going who actually give a shit because of the nature of the competitiveness. So finding support, finding community, finding things that are going to help you flourish within the industry is challenging. It's okay. Sometimes you might find someone online, you might find someone who's in the industry around you. It is possible, but yeah, it sometimes can be really lonely and feel like it's you versus the world. And more or less it is, because you are a sole trader, you're not a business. And if you go work in one of the big box gyms, sometimes you can just be forgotten about in the numbers and in the chaos that is those larger businesses. So yeah, you can feel a little bit lonely, and it can feel like you're not well supported. You certainly haven't got the education straight after that 6 months of Cert 3, Cert 4 to help to allow you just to jump into the wild and do your own thing. And if you do, congratulations, these videos aren't for you anyway. But for those who feel like they just haven't been educated enough and need a next step, it's important that the support is there, and often found that that's not a case in PT. Of course, on the topic of it, it doesn't necessarily teach you that much. I have to admit, some of the courses out there are absolutely dynamite, but there's no way you can cram years and years of experience and knowledge into 3 to 6 months online. It's just not possible. So I'm a big advocate for finding mentors and treating it like a apprenticeship. However, yeah, most people come out of that Cert 3, Cert 4 with no more skills than they had going into it, just a bit of paper. So because of that, you can injure your clients, you can get shat on by the exercise physiologists and the guys who are above you. Because of that, other PTs who have been in the industry for a long time monopolize 90% of the clients, and you get all the dreads or the people that no one wants to work with. But yeah, you're more often than not necessarily much better than you were. So that course does not provide you the skills to flourish in this industry. So don't be confused. There is no way you can go straight from Cert 3, Cert 4 into a fully functional full-time business. You'd usually have to build yourself up over time with knowledge, clients, and experience. It is massively overwhelming. So we've just talked about how that Cert 3, Cert 4 doesn't really give you the skills. It kind of just drops you in that, I now have a ticket that I'm allowed to learn. I'm allowed to go out on my way and learn what I need to learn. But you must know how to sell. You must know how to market. You have to know how to program. You must, which is to find a specialism of what you want to work with. You must know how to rehab and keep clients uninjured, and you must know your nutrition. And each of those are huge endeavors. You just don't wake up and know how to do those things. Selling is an art form so that you don't come across like a scumbag, and you're actually able to provide something the client wants and deserves. You're not just selling it to sell it. Your marketing is massively important, because if people don't know you exist, how do you expect to make any influence on anyone ever? If you're programming shit, there's no point with the other two, because you're not selling them a service that's any good. And you're also yourself not practicing your own skill set very much. If you can't rehab a client and you can't keep a client uninjured, you just end up destroying people, building a terrible reputation, and potentially hurting people for their whole lives. And your nutrition is so crucial to the process that is your programming in your career, that it must be done. It's like 50 to 90%, depending who you talk to, on influence on performance in the gym. So these are 5 massive pillars that can take you years each if you to deep dive in them. And each of them have 4-year degrees at university, like as a starting point to learn. So you are now expected, let's not forget, you've got to learn how to run a business. You've got to learn how to do the books. You've got to learn your taxes. You've got to learn all this stuff that can be really lame, but you must know these things. You're functionally becoming a business, and that's not what it's sold as. It's sold as a fitness career, but in reality, it should be sold as a business model of this is the fitness business and how to run it. So these are things I need you to consider before you deep dive into becoming a personal trainer. For your job security, this is what I hear, and one of the big deterrents for people to becoming a Cert 3, Cert 4, becoming a personal trainer is job security. The reality is there is none. Okay, the reason people, other than interest in education, go up into the university and college setting to get themselves those beautiful degrees, those things give you an element of job security in that if you become an exercise physiologist, I would expect you to get $80,000-ish a year in your field, right? So, and that's in a clinic, or if you're a physiotherapist, similar kind of wage, similar kind of space. Again, that's Australian. And yeah, you work under a clinic, you have a boss, you're off to the races. With PT, again, you're a sole trader. If you cannot get yourself clients, you will not have work. Now, well, you might think, well, plumbers and carpenters and such do really well as sole traders, so surely I can do the same as in PT. Yes and no. The reason tradies do so well, or people within the trades, is because there's a massive demand for it. There's always toilets that need fixing. There's always water that needs fixing. New houses are in constant development. There is a massive outcry for that field. Personal training is massively saturated because everyone thinks it's a get out of that 9-to-5 job and move into the fitness industry and change your life and change people's lives, which it can be. However, since everyone does it, there's no demand for it. There's no demand for it. There's so many people in that fitness industry, and so many of the big guys all hold so much of the monopoly that there's almost no work for a lot of people unless they decide to specialize specifically. So your job security is really low unless you can hustle after it. Now, that's not to say you can't get the certificate and work it as a side hustle and build up your clientele, but I want people to understand that unless you're something special, or you've specialized in something, or you've got some skill sets that will apply to your industry, you're not going to come straight out of your Cert 3, Cert 4, work with pro athletes and make millions of dollars. It just doesn't happen because there's not enough of a demand for you, because you're competing against the other health industry professionals, you're competing against other PTs, other gym owners. Athletes are a commodity. Most of them work with the best, which you're more than likely not. Most people in the PT space don't want to work with kids and older population, which is where there's a lot of money. So you've got to factor in that the job security isn't necessarily something that comes with personal training. That is okay, because you can make it work. And videos like this that you're watching, seeking mentorship, doing those things will give you a better shot. It really will. However, just factor in that it's not as glorious as you think it is. So real quick recap. I love the work. If you're high go-getter, high energy, it's really fun. It is a fantastic side hustle. You can do very well, and in the money sense. The course is really quick. It's relatively cheap. It is amazing to get you out of the 9-to-5. However, the job security is not there. It's massively competitive. You might not make as much as you think you're going to make. It's not well respected amongst the health industry. You're probably going to need to seek higher education as you go, and there's a shit ton to learn, and you've got to learn it or you will fail. The failure rate of personal training is really, really high for a reason. There's a couple of factors. The fact that it attracts a lot of young people who often move out of that as a career, as well as the fact that it's very complicated in the fact that it is it's learning how to business, not necessarily learning how to PT. So keep those things in mind before you make your decisions, team. I'm an advocate for it. I think you should do it, and that's why we make these videos, to help you along the journey. I would love to see more educated PTs. However, it's not for everyone. That is okay. Don't jump into something. The best thing you can do, the absolute number one thing you can do if you want to be a PT, is go talk to personal trainers. Talk to people in your industry, in the areas you want to train. Ask them how much they make. Ask how much they work. Ask how much they pay in tax. Ask what they needed for education. Ask them how long it took. Ask them if they'd be willing to take you on board. And then think about what you could offer them, because no one's going to take you on if you're not offering them some sort of service. But keep those things in mind. Just talk to someone in the industry, and I think it'll answer a lot of questions for you. If you like these kind of pros and cons lists, ask me some more pros, ask me some more cons, ask me some more questions. I'll make some videos around it. If any of those topics were particularly interesting, I'm happy to deep dive into any of them. Let me know. See ya.